In today's video, I want to go over a plethora of new information about the PlayStation 5. Specifically, now we have performance specs, leaks, teraflops, GDDR6 memory, news on backwards compatibility, and why there might not be PlayStation 3 backwards compatibility, at least natively on the console. We'll talk all about that. Ubisoft and IOI developers are also talking about something that I find rather interesting, and that is ray tracing. That is something that has gotten some people to talk. However, I've been pushing the ray tracing wagon a little bit harder than some other people. We'll talk that at the end of this video, but let's talk about all the stuff that people want to hear about the PS5. Yes, I know that there's a big info drop coming at CES January 6th, but there's no reason why we can't talk about all of the leaks coming out now. We have another one built up over the course of 6 months, as noted by PSU. A well-regarded snooper has unearthed a raft of new information regarding the performance of the PlayStation 5 from the same 3D Mark database, which yielded the Oberon code name for the PlayStation 5's AMD manufactured gaming processor. This same individual has also managed to confirm a number of performance-related details regarding the architecture of the PS5 as well, GDDR6 memory that's being used, and much more. So take it with a grain of salt for now, but let's run through it anyway. According to the leak, the PlayStation 5 GPU will boast 36 available compute units running at 2.0 GHz, and that would provide the PlayStation 5 with around 9.2 teraflops of performance, which is pretty great. But at the same time, don't let that numerically fool you. Next-gen teraflops are going to be much more capable than their current-gen equivalents. Also, teraflops don't take into account other aspects of the hardware, such as SSD, ray tracing, and other features. Yes, it's one element to deduce, and a lot of people look at that as the be-all, end-all, but it necessarily isn't. It couples with the rest of the hardware that the PlayStation 5 has, and spoiler alert, the rest of the hardware that the PlayStation 5 has looks pretty freaking great. PlayStation 5 RAM GDDR6 has been confirmed. This leak also confirms that not only will the PlayStation 5 use the expensive GDDR6 RAM, so that's really the imperative here. GDDR6 is the pricey route, but that it will be super fast as well, clocking in at around 512 gigabytes per second. As to the amount of RAM, the leak points to around 16 gigabytes of RAM, the same as what the Xbox Series X is supposed to have. I imagine in terms of comparing the Series X to the PlayStation 5, they're gonna be very comparable in terms of power, so I really wouldn't be getting into huge wars about that. If that's what you're really itching to know about, I don't really think that's gonna be the be-all, end-all, because ultimately the multi-platform games are gonna be developed to be on the Series X and the PlayStation 5. There's gonna be no world, at least I really can't foresee it, where one platform is so much powerful than the other that it inherently just starts getting third-party exclusives. Yes, that happened with the PS3 and the 360 initially, but that wasn't necessarily because the Xbox 360 was the better platform or the more powerful platform. It actually happened because the PlayStation 3, while being the more powerful platform, the PlayStation 3, because it had such a ridiculous architecture, a lot of developers didn't want to develop for it initially, but nonetheless, that is something to note as well. And lastly, as far as this leak, here's something I find very, very interesting, and honestly, it might be a little bit of unfortunate news for some of you guys. PlayStation 5 backwards compatibility at the hardware level seems to have been confirmed. The leak has also confirmed that the GPU has 3 different modes that it can be switched between. Though the standard 2.0 GHz CPU clock exists for native PS5 games, or also referred to as Gen 2 by the leak, the GPU has 2 other modes titled Gen 1 and Gen 0. Gen 1 is basically an exact match for the specs of the PlayStation 4 Pro, while Gen 0 is also a perfect match for the original PlayStation 4, meaning that rather than emulating PlayStation 4 games at the software level, the PlayStation 5 will simply be able to play PS4 games at the hardware level. Now, that's exciting in the sense that PS4 games will then essentially be natively playable on the PlayStation 5. It would also be the assumption that since the GPU would be altering itself to run the PS4 games, that unless a game gets an update or a patch, that it would be running at standard performance as you would see on the PS4 Pro. That's what I deduce. However, because the PlayStation 4 games would be running at the hardware level, that would make you think that the PlayStation 3 emulation would be something that isn't confirmed yet, because that would have to come through software emulation. Now, the idea that PlayStation 3 would have to be emulated via software is something that I don't think people weren't expecting. However, the idea that Sony had completely understood software emulation about the PlayStation 3, we don't know if that's necessarily the case. We don't know if Sony's putting any resources to put this in motion, and ultimately, from their standpoint, do they have to do it? I mean, it would look kind of bad if Xbox comes out and they announced with the Series X, it's going to be able to play every 360 game and every Xbox One game, while on the PlayStation 5, you can play every PlayStation 4 game, and that's great, but PlayStation 3 games aren't playable, PlayStation 2 games are only playable via the games that are available digitally, and PS1 games are what they are. If they don't do that either, that would be a little bit of a bummer, but PS1 games getting that working on the PlayStation 5, that's not going to be a big deal. Getting PlayStation 2 games working wouldn't be a big deal. PlayStation 3 games, on the other hand, I'm a little bit more uncertain about. Now, there are some crafty developers that are getting the ball rolling on PC, but those are crafty developers working outside. Is Sony gonna, work on the PlayStation 5 and get it to have PlayStation 3 emulation? I definitely hope so. I know it's not a be-all, end-all feature for a lot of you guys, but for me, it's something that I really, really want to see. There's a lot of great PlayStation 3 games, and I know it would contradict the idea of them pushing PlayStation Now, but if Microsoft is gonna have it with the Xbox Series X, I do think it would be a bummer if Sony doesn't have full backwards compatibility extending beyond the PlayStation 4 with the PlayStation 3 as well. That's my 2 cents. Is it going to be a deal breaker? The be-all, end-all? No, ultimately. With all of these performance numbers, with everything involved, there are 2 things that the success of the PlayStation 5 is going to come down to. First of all, the price. Second of all, the exclusive games lineup. Those are going to be the 2 imperative factors. Those are the 2 variables that we have to be concerned about, because those aren't set in stone yet. As far as performance numbers, specifications, yeah, it's all fun and good to look at. Even backwards compatibility, it's great to have. However, you need new experiences. You need high quality games, and you need a price point that isn't going to make everybody's wallet super empty, and I think Sony is ultimately going to be able to do that. I'm actually the most confident in them getting those parts right, because they have experience from overpricing a console with the PlayStation 3, and then they have experience in pricing a console right, and they have experience in delivering high quality exclusive after high quality exclusive. They've honestly been doing that since the PlayStation 3, so I'm confident that they'll get those 2 elements right, but that is going to be the biggest factor determining the success of the PS5. Alright, and I lastly also wanted to talk a little bit about PlayStation 5 tech, and it'll be bringing game artists a step closer to achieving film-like VFX, and that's coming from developers directly. IO Interactive lighting artist Stefana Hernandez has said that the PlayStation 5's ray tracing technology will help to create more detailed 3D environments, utilizing accurate light bounces, reflections, and shadows. Speaking of Games Radar, Hernandez explained the difference between current-gen and next-gen technology in terms of realism. With the current generation tech, a lot of the in-game reflections are made use reflection spheres, which are not very accurate. When placing a light in a scene, we add additional light bounces to make it look believable. The new ray tracing technology produces accurate light bounces, reflections, and shadows, bringing out many of the details in 3D environments. This makes the overall picture look and feel much more realistic. Lighting plays a big role in setting the mood and feel of a game, and I believe this can help towards a more immersive game experience for the player. I believe that we are nearing a point where it will be possible to get visual gaming experiences much closer to the one currently achieved only by pre-rendered scenes. That's pretty incredible. If you guys see the pre-rendered scenes, those look absolutely ridiculous, and if we can get to a point where games are just in motion looking like that, alright, that would be pretty insane. And Hernandez's thoughts were echoed by Ubisoft Toronto 3D artist Marco Baratara. According to him, if ray tracing is utilized properly, we can expect to see more photographic lighting and surfacing consumers are used to seeing in VFX shots for films or animated movies. Hernandez also went on to say that game artists are excited to work on next generation hardware, particularly because the upgraded technology allows them to make more complex lighting setups. So lighting is probably not something that gamers are constantly going back to and thinking, oh man, that game has really great lighting. However, it's one of those undertone elements that really sets the tone for a game and ultimately makes the game a very visually pleasing. Ray tracing is something I'm still a little bit skeptical with. If you look at high-end PCs, ray tracing is really hard to get off the ground, and if they're saying, let's even say 4K, let's forget about the 8K meme, but 4K 30 or 60 FPS, and then you're talking ray tracing on top of that, that sounds pretty beefy, so we'll see how ultimately that turns out. But nonetheless, it is pretty exciting that they're already thinking about how these hardware improvements are ultimately going to make the games look in the future, and it looks like they're pretty excited about it. And that's going to conclude this video. Again, ahead of January 6th, we're seeing a lot of PlayStation 5 leaks and news updates, so these performances look impressive. I am a little bit skeptical about that backwards compatibility information. Hey, it's exciting if we get PS4 backwards compatibility. I think that's a foregone conclusion. It'd be an absolute train wreck if we didn't get that, but I did want PS3 backwards compatibility. I wanted PS2 PS2, PS1, all that stuff, but maybe that won't happen, at least not initially. And PlayStation 5 tech is said to bring game artists a step closer to achieving film-like VFX, and that's coming straight from the developers. That's gonna conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.